I never thought my marriage would come down to a single weekend. Stephanie and I had been together for almost a decade. High school sweethearts, college struggles, first apartment, first real jobs. Our lives were intertwined in ways that felt permanent. Sure, we had our ups and downs, but I always believed we were solid. Lately, though, things had felt off. It started subtly. The way she'd pull her phone a little closer when she texted. The sudden girls' nights that left her coming home late, smelling like expensive cologne that wasn't mine. The way she'd pick fights over nothing, like she was looking for an excuse to be mad at me. I chalked it up to stress. Work had been demanding for both of us, and maybe, just maybe, we'd let the spark fade a little. I figured she needed space, so I gave it to her. I didn't pry, didn't ask too many questions. Then, one night, she dropped a bomb on me. I think I need a break. I laughed at first, thinking she was joking. A break from what? She hesitated. From us. My stomach twisted. What does that mean? Stephanie sighed, like she was the one being wronged. I need some time to clear my head, to feel something different. I just want one weekend. A weekend to do whatever I want. No questions asked. My heart pounded. You mean, with someone else? She didn't answer right away. Instead, she gave me that tired, exasperated look. The one she used when she thought I was being difficult. I just want to feel something new, she said, her voice almost casual, as if she were talking about trying a new restaurant instead of testing the limits of our marriage. It doesn't mean I don't love you. It's just, I need to know what's out there. My first instinct was to beg, to ask if I'd done something wrong, if I wasn't enough, if I could fix this. But something in her face told me she'd already made up her mind. So I swallowed my pride and forced myself to nod. All right, I said. Her eyes widened, like she hadn't expected me to agree so easily. Maybe she wanted a fight. Maybe she wanted me to scream, to beg her to stay. But I didn't. I just smiled. Because in that moment, something inside me shifted. She wanted a weekend to feel something new? Fine. By the time she came home, she'd be the one walking into something new. I spent the next few days pretending everything was fine. I kissed her on the cheek when she left for work. I texted her like normal. I even asked if she wanted me to help pack for her break. Stephanie acted like she had won some silent battle. She was almost cheerful, humming to herself while she packed her weekend bag, picking out outfits with more effort than I'd seen her put into our date nights in months. She thought she had me figured out. Thought I'd just sit around, waiting for her to come back like nothing had happened. She was wrong. The night before she left, I made my move. I wasn't just going to replace her. I was going to make sure she knew deep down that she was never the prize she thought she was. I reached out to an old friend. Let's call her Natalie. Natalie and I had history, the kind that never fully fades no matter how much time passes. She was my first everything before Stephanie. We parted on good terms, but life had taken us in different directions. We hadn't talked in years, but when I messaged her, she responded almost immediately. Hey, random question. What are you doing this weekend? Natalie, that depends. Why? Me. Ever wanted to help an old friend teach someone a lesson? She called me right after that. I told her everything. How Stephanie wanted a weekend away to explore new sensations. How I knew exactly what that meant, and how I wasn't planning on being the sad husband waiting at home for her return. Natalie laughed. You always did play the long game. I'm serious. And what exactly do you need me to do? I hesitated. Just be here when she gets back. A pause. Then she chuckled. You want to make her jealous? No, I said. I want her to realize she was never as irreplaceable as she thought. Natalie agreed. Not just because she still had a soft spot for me, but because she knew the type of woman Stephanie was. The type that thought she could have her cake and eat it too. So, while Stephanie packed for her little adventure, I got to work. I redecorated the house. New bedsheets. A fresh scent in the air. I moved her things out of the master bedroom, tucked neatly into storage bins, and replaced them with little details that would make her stomach drop the second she walked in. Different perfume on the nightstand, a pair of unfamiliar heels by the door, a second coffee cup next to mine on the counter. By the time she walked out the door, Thinking she was about to have the time of her life, I was already setting the stage for my grand finale. She had no idea what was waiting for her when she came home. The moment Stephanie left for her little break, I felt something I hadn't in months: clarity. I wasn't going to spend the weekend drowning in self-pity, wondering what she was doing or who she was with. No, I had better things to do. Natalie showed up that evening, suitcase in hand, giving me a once-over before stepping inside. "So, this is where happily ever after was supposed to happen, huh?" she mused, glancing around. "Something like that," I muttered, shutting the door behind her. She walked through the house, taking in the details: Stephanie's absence, the slight rearrangements I had made. When she reached the master bedroom and saw that I had packed Stephanie's things away, she smirked. "Damn, you really committed to this." "Had to," I said. "It's not just about proving a point. It's about taking back my life." We spent the next few days doing everything I knew would leave a mark when Stephanie returned. Not in a childish way, no over-the-top displays, no obvious pettiness. Just small, meaningful changes that would make it clear I had moved on in record time. We took pictures together, nothing inappropriate, just enough to plant the seed of doubt. Cozy dinner at home. A glass of wine on the balcony. A shot of my morning coffee with a second cup in the frame. And then there was the scent. Stephanie had a signature perfume. One she practically bathed in every morning before heading out. It was a scent I had come to associate with her, and I knew that if I replaced it with something new, she'd notice immediately. So I let Natalie leave subtle traces of hers behind. On the couch, on the pillows, in the air. By Sunday evening, everything was set. Stephanie would come home to a house that no longer felt like hers, to a man who no longer looked like he had been waiting for her return. And the best part? I wasn't acting. Somewhere between Natalie showing up and us laughing over stupid inside jokes from years ago, I realized something. I felt lighter, freer, like I had already left Stephanie behind before she even walked back through that door. I didn't need to wonder if she regretted leaving, because by the time she stepped back into this house, I'd make damn sure she did. Sunday evening, just after 7, I heard the sound of a car pulling into the driveway. I didn't rush to the door. I didn't sit there waiting, heart pounding, dreading whatever excuse she had rehearsed. I simply poured myself a drink and waited. The front door creaked open, and there she was, Stephanie, stepping into what she still thought was her home. Her hair was slightly messy, her makeup barely hanging on, and there was a glow about her that made me sick to my stomach. She looked satisfied, relaxed, like a woman who had just spent the weekend doing exactly what she wanted. And then she froze. Her gaze darted around the room, taking in the subtle, impossible-to-miss changes. The heels by the door that weren't hers. The scent of a different woman in the air. The 2 wine glasses sitting on the coffee table. She blinked, her lips parting slightly, like her brain was short-circuiting. What is this?" I stayed seated, swirling the whiskey in my glass. "What do you mean?" Her eyes snapped to mine, confusion giving way to something else, something uglier. "Who's been here?" I leaned back, stretching out in the chair like I didn't have a care in the world. "Oh, you know, just spent the weekend feeling something new." Her face drained of color. There it was, that flicker of realization. I didn't scream. I didn't accuse. I just gave her exactly what she had given me. Cold, casual indifference. Stephanie dropped her bag onto the floor. "So what? You're just trying to get back at me?" I laughed.
No, Steph.
"I just realized something while you were gone." I stood up, walking toward her. She took a small step back. "You thought you had all the power. Thought I'd just sit here, waiting for you to come home like nothing happened." I tilted my head, watching her shift uncomfortably. "I didn't need to wait." Her jaw tightened. "You're lying." I just smiled. Then, as if on cue, the bedroom door creaked open, and Natalie walked out, stretching her arms. "Hey, babe, do you know where?" She stopped mid-sentence when she saw Stephanie standing there. A slow, knowing smirk crossed her lips. Stephanie inhaled sharply, her eyes darting between us. "You've got to be kidding me." I shrugged. You wanted a weekend to feel something new. I just did the same. For the first time, I saw something flicker in her expression that I hadn't seen in a long time: panic. She thought she could walk back into my life like nothing happened. Thought I'd still be there, arms open, ready to forgive. But she had left a wife and returned to a stranger. Stephanie's voice wavered. So that's it? You just replace me like I'm nothing? I stared at her for a long moment before answering. No, I said softly. You replaced yourself. Stephanie didn't move right away. She just stood there, her eyes locked on mine, waiting for me to crack, for me to give her something she could work with. I didn't. Natalie crossed her arms, leaning casually against the wall. This is awkward, she muttered under her breath, just loud enough for Stephanie to hear. That seemed to snap her out of her trance. She shook her head, blinking rapidly. You're being ridiculous, she scoffed, forcing a laugh that didn't quite land. You're acting like a child, like this was some competition. I arched a brow. Wasn't it? She clenched her jaw. It wasn't supposed to mean anything. Ah, there it was, the confession. I let the silence stretch between us, watching as she realized what she had just admitted. She looked away, her breathing uneven. You had your weekend, Steph, I said finally. This is just me making sure you understand what that cost you. She scoffed again, folding her arms tightly across her chest. Oh, please, you don't even like her. Natalie let out a sharp laugh. Wow, rude. Stephanie ignored her, eyes burning into me. This isn't real. You don't just replace someone overnight. I tilted my head. You did. That shut her up. For a second, she looked like she wanted to argue. But then she glanced around again. The house, the little details that no longer felt like hers, the woman standing beside me instead of her. She was losing her grip, and she knew it. I don't know what you want me to say, she muttered, suddenly softer, as if that would change things. I don't want you to say anything, I replied, voice steady. I just want you to leave. She flinched. You don't mean that. I did, but I didn't bother saying it again. I just stepped aside, giving her a clear path to the door. She stood there for a moment, her nails digging into her arms, like she was waiting for me to stop her, waiting for me to fold. I didn't, and when she finally realized that, when she truly understood that I wasn't playing, something in her face twisted, something bitter and wounded and angry all at once. She grabbed her bag off the floor and stormed toward the door, yanking it open with a sharp breath. But just before she stepped out, she turned to face me one last time. You're going to regret this, she hissed. I just smiled. I already don't. And with that, she was gone. The door slammed behind her, rattling the frame. I stood there for a second, listening to her footsteps fade down the walkway, then the distant sound of her car door opening, slamming shut, and the engine roaring to life. Natalie let out a slow whistle behind me. Well, that was dramatic. I exhaled, running a hand through my hair. Yeah. She stepped up beside me, arms crossed as she stared at the door like Stephanie might burst back through it at any second. You okay? I thought about it. Really thought about it. I should have felt broken, angry, grief-stricken, but I didn't. Instead, there was just this strange, unfamiliar sense of peace. Like I had been holding on to something toxic for so long that I didn't even realize how heavy it was until I let it go. I think so, I said, surprised by how much I meant it. Natalie smirked. Good, because I was going to be really annoyed if I had to spend the rest of the night convincing you she wasn't worth it. I chuckled, shaking my head. I already know. And I did. Stephanie had spent the last few months making me feel small, like I was just a placeholder in her life until she decided what she really wanted. And for a while I let her. I ignored the signs. I tried to be understanding, tried to be the good guy. But the truth was, she had made her choice the second she asked for that weekend away. All I did was make sure she knew that choices had consequences. Natalie nudged my shoulder. So what now? I thought about that too. For the first time in a long time, my future didn't feel like a series of question marks wrapped around someone else's decisions. It felt open, like I could do anything, go anywhere, be whoever the hell I wanted to be. I don't know, I admitted. But whatever it is, it won't include her. Natalie grinned. Good answer. We stood there for a while, just letting the moment settle. No more lies. No more waiting. No more wondering if I was enough. I had everything I needed. And Stephanie? She had exactly what she asked for.